Hey, everybody. Um, we had such a great turnout last time we did one of these. We wanted to keep delivering them to you. We have quite a bit of content to cover today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. No worries if you can't join us during the whole session. We will be saving this and we'll be posting it tomorrow on Materia's Instagram. Um, so Materia and Taboo are two, although they're two different projects, we we talk a lot about what trends we're seeing and the questions that people are asking us. And one of the questions that we've been getting a lot lately are the what people need is to be explained more about the language around what we do and what we use. So today we'll be speaking about quintessences. Raymond has some really exciting stuff to announce as well as I do. So let's go ahead and get started. So, Raven, can you go ahead and begin and tell us what is a quintessence for all of those who don't know?
All right. So quintessence is a word that's used a lot, and I know that we're a lot of us are into alchemy, a lot of us aren't, and a lot of people that I know are interested in what I do, but they don't care about the alchemical part of it, which is fine because alchemy itself is a holographic language, so it could be spoken in any language, in any avenue, and on any stage. So I'll give two definitions, or I'll give a definition by Oxford on what a quintessence is, and a definition by Webster. And may not sound like it's alchemical, but it is. Um, Originally, one of the meanings for a quintessence, it was just alchemy, the same way that spagyric originally just meant alchemy as well. But now in modern times, we've been using these words for a bunch of different things. So Oxford explains that a quintessence is the most perfect or typical example of a quality or a class. And it also expresses that it's an aspect of something regarded as the intrinsic and central constituent of its character. Webster explains that it's the fifth and highest element in ancient and medieval philosophy, and is substance composing the celestial bodies. And Webster also says that it's the essence of a thing in its purest and most concentrated form. So those are the dictionary descriptions of what a quintessence is. So when I think of the word quintessence, it's the fifth element. All right. So if you think about it, you have all four elements, but there's a center of it all. And the way that I describe the quintessence is man is the quintessence, not male or female, but the human. As they say, man is the measure of all things. So we are the creators of everything. And what I'm doing with quintessences and the plant and animal work, but we'll talk about the plant work specifically. So you have a spagyric, and the spagyric is the extraction of the three principles. So you have the essential oil, which is the essence, the soul or the sulfur. You have the spirit, which is the alcohol, or the mind, the mercury. And then you have the salt, which is the body or the physical form, or the experience itself, right? So you could extract these three things from a plant, and boom, you have a spagyric, right? I'm doing spagyrics, but the reason that I'm considering them quintessences is because if you think about it, what a spagyric is and what all herbal medicine is actually aiming at and where it actually came from was it's about the essential oil, the essence of God, the higher intelligence, whatever you want to call it. That's where the medicinal properties are. And you want to bring these things deeper into the body. So you can extract the soul or the essential oil out of anything in nature, anything. Basic spagyric extractions of the essential oil are the Clevenger apparatus, steam distillation, hydrodistillation, and then there's like menstruums. So what I'm doing is, yeah, I do alchemy and magic and stuff, but what I really am obsessed with is perfumery. And it's playing around with the essential oils or the essences of these beings that are expressing themselves in this physical form. So I got really interested about a year ago and got really, really attracted to the idea of like, wait a minute, if I do a hydrodistillation of rosemary and I do a steam distillation of rosemary, what I get is two slightly different aspects of the soul. If I do a Clevenger, I get a more full spectrum, but there's still more. And another thing that I'm really interested in is alkaloids. So alkaloids are these nitrogen-based compounds, and a lot of them are psychoactive, entheogenic. A lot of them are poisonous, but in essence, they're all medicinal. So what I'm doing is, I'll give you an example like Blue Lotus. So typically what I was doing with Blue Lotus was what's called an ENDS extraction, and that's an alkaloid extraction of the plant with oil of tartar, which basically allows the extraction of these alkaloids, but a lot of these alkaloids are very heat sensitive, so you can't distill them out. The molecules sometimes are too big, they're too heavy, so you can't distill them out either. So that's what the ENDS extraction does. With the secret fire, I get to extract this. But alkaloids are all very different from each other, even in one encompassing plant. So what I've been doing is using different menstruums, including the ENDS extraction, to extract a full profile of that plant's alkaloids, and not just Blue Lotus. When I'm doing this with mistletoe, I'm doing this with rosemary, I'm doing this with the animals. I'm extracting as much as I can right now in my development and awareness of the alkaloids. But I'm also doing the same exact thing with how many different ways can I extract the essence of the oil of this plant to give me even broader spectrum in the terms of like, medicine or healing or just working with these plants.
So would you say that it is you, the alchemist, who are conducting the four elements, and you yourself, as you're conducting these elements, are the quintessence?
Yeah.
So a part of your work is that you put your own soul into your work, and then that becomes the quintessence.
Always.
Okay.
And that's what makes it an art form, because it's not this thing that I make so that I can be famous or make money or anything. I just do it for myself. And I treat materia as my portfolio for all these things that I offer the public.
So then the difference between a spagyric and a quintessence is that a spagyric is just the soul, the mind, and the body. But what you're doing with your quintessence is you're using multiple extraction methods and adding them together, plus your own essence. And that's what you're calling your quinta essentia, the quintessence. Okay, great. Can you give us an example of one of the quintessences you're working on and how that might be different than what other people are doing?
So I'll just use again the example of the Blue Lotus. I had previously done several Blue Lotuses extractions through ENDS, and they were great. They were really, really amazing. But just working with the Blue Lotus alone, it started showing me like, hey, you could extract other profiles of my essence. It doesn't just have to be through the ENDS extraction or through, steam distillation, which I do, because the more aspects of the soul that I can get together, the more potent it is, the more powerful and the more profound it is. So this is what I've been doing with the Blue Lotus quintessence, that it's part of the list of quintessences that I'm working on right now that are going to be released really soon.
So what kind of effects do you notice between the difference between like a simple spagyric of Blue Lotus and the quintessence of Blue Lotus that you make?
I am someone that likes to work with poison, or for me personally, I don't advise this for people, but for me, what works is the intense full effect, the fire, like immediately. So I've actually been able to exalt the Blue Lotus to a point where I only need to work with a very small amount, which I was very happy about because I don't have to keep making a crap ton of product and having to work with it so much. I can work with a small amount for a certain period of time. And what I've noticed is there's something really awesome about the Blue Lotus in general as an aphrodisiac, because I started seeing more vividly from the other extractions of Blue Lotus that I've done, which is it really is a heart opener. And I wouldn't say a mind opener, but it's more like a tamer of the mind. So sometimes the Egyptians would use Blue Lotus during funeral rites. So they would give it to the people, the family members of the person that's dead. You know, everyone's going through emotional heartaches and a terrible time. So they would give them Blue Lotus, and they would burn Blue Lotus as incense as well. So the alkaloids in Blue Lotus, what they do is like they open up the heart and allow the mind to receive the experience without judging it, without resisting it, and just allowing. And that's a big part of healing is the only way you're actually going to get over something is by allowing it to fully just course your veins and express itself. Whether you're going to cry, break something, it's fine. Like it's all healthy, right? As long as you're not hurting anyone. So what I've noticed with the Blue Lotus is as I've been using Blue Lotus, and I want to know if there's a word for this. I use it in conjunction with everything else that I'm working with because a lot of the things that I'm working with, they are healing things in the body. They are addressing, psychological, emotional things, and the emotional things are actually just like the mental stuff. And and I'm all about like being Quicksilver, so it just allows me to just get through it. Like, okay, I know that I'm sad because blah blah blah. I know that I'm worried because of this and the fourth. I know, okay, fine. So I see it, I feel it, I can embrace it with love. I mean, it's all love, anyways, whether I think about it or not. And it just allows Blue Lotus allows the stage to be set for bigger and better things. But we can't get to bigger and better things, or I can't get to bigger and better things until I address these little lead weights that are hanging around in my body, in my emotional body, my psychological body, my ethereal bodies. Yeah.
I just want to add a little something there. So Blue Lotus actually modulates psilocybin. So when you take psilocybin and Blue Lotus together, it takes the experience of the psilocybin and really smooths it out a lot. Because from what I've experienced when I've taken your Blue Lotus quintessence, is that my mind, it's not necessarily mind opener, it is a heart opener, but it gives me such clarity about what I'm perceiving. So when you take mushrooms and Blue Lotus together, it's almost like you're allowed to receive the message that the mushrooms has to give to you without illusion, without your programs and your projections. And Blue Lotus, psilocybin, mandrake, and poppy were served in this wine in the temples of Sekhmet, where they would have social orgies, essentially. So Blue Lotus is really significant in the Egyptian culture, and I've had nothing but pleasant experiences working with your Blue Lotus quintessence.
Thank you. I'm glad.
So would you like to tell us a little bit more about your offerings, your offering of Blue Lotus?
I like to take my time with things, but then I've been learning to listen to the audience, and they're starting to kind of dictate like what I should be releasing and how soon and stuff. I can't rush it, but I also I have the Blue Lotus quintessence right now that it's almost complete. It's just digesting. And I just always feel that the longer the better, the more mature these things get. But I've been working on this quintessence for like 2 years now, almost 2 years now, and yeah, and it's not the only one that I'm working on. I got a full list. One of the ones that actually one of my personal favorites is the Amanita quintessence that I'm working on as well, and they work really, 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 really beautifully together. I personally like to work with all these guys at night, an hour or two before I go to bed, because I could actually become more present in the dream state with the Blue Lotus quintessence and the Amanita quintessence and the Blue Lotus, the mistletoe quintessences. Because when I'm in that dream state, I'm not really pushing or pulling at reality. I'm just there. This reality is the one that I'm constantly like, ooh, I want this. I want to do that. What's this? Why am I feeling that? I'm tired. I don't want to sleep. I don't need a nap. I need a nap. In the dream states, though, and because I have the Blue Lotus in my system as well, whatever else I'm working with, it's been allowing me to just like sit there and laugh, mostly at myself.
Um, Sabiti brings up a good point about mixing the Blue Lotus and the Serpent Spagyric together. So I think that would be a great experience.
Yeah, no,
Can you maybe
I've been
talk
doing it.
about what you would expect or what you think would happen?
Well, I have been working with the Blue Lotus with Serpent and the Blue Lotus with Cicada. So the Serpent, for me personally, so I don't want to program anyone that this is what they're going, that they should expect this as an experience, which is why I don't really talk about my personal experiences with them. But with the Serpent, at first it was, we have to address these things. They're not issues, they're not problems, they're not nothing like that. It's not shit. It's just things that are just in the way of fully like feeling that flow of energy without anything being in the way and getting stagnant or stagnating that energy. And so at first got me through that. And I was like, wait, I should work with the Blue Lotus. I'm pretty sure that it was Serpent speaking to me to do it. But sometimes they speak to me with my own voice. So I'm like, okay. But the next thing that happened though, once I got to address these things, is that like now we could address the body. But because the Blue Lotus is a heart opener and it allows the mind, like the heart is open, it's emitting all this extra energy that's always there, but we're not receptive of it. So the mind becomes very receptive of it. And it's like this one thing that's not a person, that's not anything that I could identify. It's just like this frequency that causes a state for the mind to be in. And it's allowed me to just lay there in bed and just like open up like a starfish or a pentagram, whatever. And just like, okay, what is it that we need to address now? What is it that we need to see now? And even with that, I had such a negative connotation with, oh man, what else is this shit that I need to bring out of myself? And now I'm just like, I'll bring it. Just bring it with the Blue Lotus and just like bring it. Everything's fine. Everything's okay. This is just going to accelerate my development and my evolution on this planet so much quicker as long as I'm actually able to allow these things to happen. So I don't have to take weeks or months or years trying to integrate my pain and blah blah blah. It's just like happening like almost instantaneously where it's like, you see this? Yeah. You acknowledge it? Yeah. You love it? Yeah. How do you feel about it? Very grateful. It got me through some stuff through life. It helped me evolve, or it helped me survive. It helped me get through things. It helped me navigate the reality that I wasn't, but I'm no longer in that. So I don't need to continue running those programs and the old CPU. So now we can move forward and upload new things by deleting old files and defragmentation and stuff. But yeah, that's what the Blue Lotus, for me personally, working with it with Serpent got me to that point. And when I got to the Cicada was a little more intense because Cicada is more like transformation in the sense of metamorphosis. So it's like this big deal thing that's about to happen. And the planet it's happening in the planet because it's happening inside me. And it's happening inside of me because it's happening in the planet. It doesn't happen in one day, but you can allow these things to happen much quicker just by allowing it. And it was really intense because at some point it's no longer like all the ravens, little things. It's like, oh no, without taking psychedelics, feeling the earth's, not the earth, but the human population feeling their stuff and realizing like, okay, so this is Atlas. The world, the weight of the world is on my shoulders, but it's not like I'm condemned to it. The Blue Lotus allowing me to allow the cicada experience to flow through, which was, it is your weight at the same time. This is like Jesus, right? To take the sins of man upon yourself, for they are yours. And I could actually like let it go. And not because I want the world to heal or let it go, because if I'm experiencing it, I need to do something with it. I need to transmute it into something else. You can't destroy energy, you can only move it. So it's like this energy of the world that I'm feeling, I need to do something with it. I can't just walk around and just like, oh no, it's so heavy. It's so.
Yeah, I think it's particularly good when you are going through those metamorphoses or sheddings to allow you to shed your perception. Like it really opens your perception in a warm way that it doesn't make the shedding and transformation process so painful because you're not so attached to your projections.
And that's why it's so painful, because you're attached to the way that you believe something. And perspective is one of my main goals. One of my main things with materia artium is it's not healing, it's not medicine. It's all it is for me. It's like, here's an experience, and when you get your hands on it, this is a perspective. Not saying that your perspective is wrong or right or anything like that. It's just perspective is a limited way of viewing things based on indoctrination. We talked about this before. Belief systems, your culture, gender, all these things that are not the one singular truth. All these things create this dynamic in which how you experience the world, how you see it, which then affects how you interact with the world. Because then if you start to realize, I think Alan Watts has said this, everything that you see and think that's wrong with the world, it's something that you need to acknowledge with yourself, because it's the same. And they're not actually different. But yeah.
What I'm picking up on, so I don't know if you guys know, but there's a god in Egypt. His name is Nefertim, and he is depicted with a lotus as his crown, and he's the child of Ta and Sekhmet, and he's actually the god of perfumery. And I think it's really funny today that we're talking about quintessences and how Raven is particularly fond of perfumery. So I feel like that archetype really does speak very strongly to you, through you. And this man always smells good. So you can best believe that anything that you receive from him will smell as equally good. So not only will it taste good, like many of the things that he makes actually taste like perfume. But not only that, but they also smell good. So the first time that I tried the serpent, I was so surprised because it definitely has an animalia smell, but it's not bad. It's just different. And then when I tasted it, I was amazed that it tastes nothing like it smells.
Yep. You can definitely tell. Like for me, the first time after like 2 years of digesting, I took some and I was like, wow, that's what a snake tastes like. I've never had snake, but that's what a fucking snake tastes like. And I knew it, but there was this really weird thing about the smell. You can smell the animalic aspect of it, but there was this really strange, subtle vanilla to it. Like I've had people ask me, like, did you put like essential oils in here? Did you put vanilla oil in here? Like, no, not at all. It's actually from the gallbladder of snakes. But I'll get into that.
And I think that the cicada is a little bit chocolatey tasting, but also the Blue Lotus is a little bit chocolatey tasting. So I bet you if you looked at their chemical structure, they have some compounds in common.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have that technology on me right now. That's
we wish.
Chromatography and stuff. These things cost like millions of dollars. But yeah. I don't know. You look at correspondences. For me, it's always intuitive. I just start to make the connections. And a lot of it is just through smell. I smell it and I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing right there. You know what I
mean? Do the animal spagyrics need to be kept at a certain temperature or in a shady place or anything like that?
I would keep anything that's a spagyric, a quintessence, anything like that, in a cabinet or in a dresser. Just away. I mean, anything that has essential oils, anything that has a volatile oil, keep it away from direct sunlight. I like to keep all these things in the dark, somewhere where there's no breeze, there's no flow of air, just in the dark.
In the dark.
Yeah. Yeah. I have like tons of little boxes that I keep different little things, you know what I mean? And whenever I open, but it also adds to the ritual too. When I open it, I'm just like,
let's just be straight up. His house looks like a wizard's workshop. So this information is great, and I love that we have these conversations. But when are you going to put it on a website, Raven?
I'm working on it.
What does that mean?
I'm doing customer service. I'm working on products. I'm trying to get like things that are digesting. Plus, I got my dog Alistair. It's like having a child, so I have been putting it off because it's not uh, my mind. And then sitting on the computer and watching videos to learn how to do Shopify, my mind's just like, "Ah! Nope, I'm done." It's like you can't be done. We're gonna take nootropics. You're gonna sit here and do it. It's like, nope, nope. We gotta go harvest. We gotta do this. We gotta
That's
do
why I'm
that.
here
Gotta do
to
the GoFundMe.
say, come on, Raven.
Gotta do live videos.
Time to work on the
Yeah.
website.
But I'm working on it. You're actually releasing your site soon, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So when they are rediscovered, they have matured and become even more magnificent
The what?
when you find them later on in the shelf.
Oh yeah, because if you got them in the dark and none of this stuff is happening, they're digesting still.
Would you say that the word is maturing?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
So
maturing, growing.
in the meantime, while
Aging.
you're working on your website, how do people get in contact with you about if they want one of your quintessences?
For right now, I'm doing everything off of Instagram. So
Okay.
just, if you have any questions, you want to know more, until I have all that database put into the website, just DM me.
Yeah, and since you guys like these videos so much, if there's anything you want in particular us to talk about, you can either DM Raven or me. I'm at dripping_lotus if you don't follow me. And we'll be happy to answer your questions. Like, I have an entity named Taboo Aphrodisiacs, and his is Materia Artium. But behind the
said it
scenes,
right.
I know, but behind the scenes, we're always working together, helping each other refine our processes, testing each other's things out,
And
along
patience.
along with a whole community of other people that we're working with. So if you want something to be spoken about, just let us know, and we'll be happy to touch on the topic.
And one of the things that I want to do very soon is, so I really like the Instagram Live, but I've been having a lot of friends and acquaintances tell me that I should do a YouTube thing, but I want to figure out a way in which at least once a week I do a Q&A. So I would like for, if you guys want my email, it's materiaartium@gmail.com. No underscore or anything, just materiaartium@gmail.com, and put in the title Q&A. And that way I can start logging like a database of what are the most commonly asked questions. And then every week we can just like touch on those, like grab maybe 2 or 3, depending on how lengthy they could be, and just start to answer the public's questions. THC extracts crystallized in the blood become treasure. Yeah.
He says, I'm a noob and would love to see y'all give a walkthrough of the process of spagyria. Very noted. We'll address that.
Yeah. I mean, we still got time. We still got 30 minutes.
Do you want to go ahead and go there?
Yeah. Spagyria. All right. So, a true alchemical spagyric, right? Think about it. So you have a plant. I don't know why I always use rosemary, but you can take a plant and just drink, like rosemary and drink the tea. And there's a benefit. What's giving it the medicinal benefit is you're ingesting the essential oil. That's what makes it do what it does. That's what causes changes in the body, physiology, whatever you want to call it, right? That it's the soul. It's the essence of that plant, right? It's the expression of it. That's what makes it. You, Kaylin, and me, Raven, it's our essential oils, or the essence of God that cannot be here, right? So when you make a tincture, which is just taking the plant and soaking it in alcohol and taking that, all you're doing still is working with the essential oil, right? With a spagyric, what a lot of people do is they just take the plant, they put it in like vodka or whatever, and then they have a spagyric. That's not what a spagyric is. That's why I don't even bother using the term true alchemical spagyric or alchemically derived spagyric, because spagyric technically meant alchemy in general. So all you're doing really is to separate the 3 principles of a plant. The 3 principles are very, very important because that's how all of reality works. How you're having the experience is based on these three principles. So we have rosemary, fresh rosemary. You can distill it for its oil. Once you distill it, whether steam, hydro, Clevenger, or whatever, right? You get the essential oil out. Put that to the side. You have now you have the expression of God through rosemary in a vial. There's your essential oil. The next one is the spirit, which is alcohol, which this is what the Middle Eastern alchemists, they were the ones that are coining all these terms. But alcohol is the spirit, which is the mercury, which is the mind. And Mercury, Hermes, Thoth, Enoch is the center of the three. It's the middle because it's the mind between the higher and the physical reality. It's the one that's generating it. And it's very important because it's the only one. Everything is that thing. All right. So you take that plant matter the rosemary that you distill the oil off, and it's best to do this with already distilled plant matter because a lot of the essential oils in these plants, they're antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. So they're not going to really always allow you to ferment them, which is what you want to do with the spent plant material. Put it in water, add some sugar. You could add some yeast. Plants usually have their own yeast, but you can add yeast. You ferment it. Depends on the plant and your environment, the environment that you're fermenting in. Usually it takes me about 30 days, and I'll have a ferment of rosemary. I filter off the rosemary. I filter off the liquid a bunch of times, and then I distill that very, very gently at a very low temp because alcohol is much more volatile at a lower temperature than water is. So your alcohol will come over.
Especially at higher elevations. Mm-hmm. You can distill it off at lower temperatures.
And you can distill it quicker too if you're using a rotovap, under vacuum, whatever. But now you have your essential oil, your sulfur, the essence. You have your alcohol of rosemary, and you need to rectify this, by the way. When you get your extraction of the alcohol, you need to now put it in a new flask and do it again. And you'll get less and less of the alcohol material because you're removing water from it. Because pure spirit is anhydrous. But the moment that it comes into contact with air, it immediately starts to absorb moisture. If you think about this philosophically, the mind, which is the spirit, highly identifies with emotions, which is water. And the reason we are separating these things is so that the mind could be the mind can realize the physical reality and realize that there is a higher intelligence that's actually pulling the strings or trying to, as long as the mind doesn't get in the way. So you got to keep rectifying this. As within, so without.
What does rectify mean?
Rectify, basically, it's just you're purifying the alcohol to a higher proof. So you can buy vodka, which is like 40% alcohol, and the rest is water. Or you can get Everclear, which is almost 100%, right? The more you rectify it, the purer spirit you're going to get. So now you have, after doing all that, you have the purified or rectified spirit of rosemary. Now you take all that spent biomass or the plant material that you just took the oil off and the alcohol, and you burn it. Just burn it to an ash. And then you take those ashes,
white ash,
grind them down, and keep burning it and burning it and burning it and burning it until it becomes white, or as white as possible. But if you feel like this is as white as you can get it, do it 3 more times. Don't ever settle with the salts. They're tricky. Now that you have your white, pure ash, you put that in water, stir it for a bit, and let it settle. It usually takes like 24 hours. What will happen is, like in a beaker, you have all the ash will drop to the bottom, and then you have your clear liquid on top. You decant that. You don't want any ash going in there. You don't want anything in there, but you decant that, filter it into a new container, usually like a Pyrex tray, and you let it evaporate at room temperature. And don't let anything come in or out. Don't let any little bugs or dust or anything like that, but let it take its time. And what will happen is that as it evaporates, the minerals, which is what ash is, which is the salt body, will form crystals. And they're not always going to be these exceptionally beautiful crystals that you see some people posting. It doesn't always work out that way, but you'll get these crystals. And I personally like to take that ash. Once I get those crystals, once I do that, I take the ash and I pour more water again, and I decant that and filter it again, and then I add that to the Pyrex tray that I'm evaporating everything in, just to get more purified salts out of it. So now that you have the sulfur, the mercury, and the body of that plant, because you've just separated everything from what's called the gross matter. And there's nothing gross about reality, but the gross matter is something that hasn't been exalted to its perfected state, even though the gross is part of the perfection process. It's really important to understand that the reason you're separating these things is because they're happening inside. So you can think that you're making a spagyric of rosemary because you want to, there's medicinal values or whatever. But the reason that you want to do these things alchemically and really separate them and do a really good job at separating them is because that shit is happening inside. And sometimes it's painful. For me, it's just hilarious. I mean, we're talking about infinity here, right? There's so many dimensions to infinity. And I'm only experiencing infinity through the third dimension, the third realm. So it's really cool that as I continue to separate these principles out of these plants, it's happening inside. Usually they show up in my dream state. Understanding that I don't actually speak, I'm actually just watching the entire experience. I don't have thoughts, I just watch. And that's the one thing that's happening, that's having and creating the entire experience. Not a type of experience, but just an experience. It is the mind that starts to create a type of experience, which generates into the physical reality. But nothing is what it seems. So separating these three principles is really important. And one of my favorite parts, I mean, I love calcining, love fire, and I love distilling. But rectifying spirit is one of my favorites. And I watch people have such a hard time rectifying spirit, which is removing emotions out of the mind, removing the water from the spirit. And it is hard. They look exactly alike. You know what I mean? But it's really important to be able to disassociate from these things without judging them, just disassociating and allowing yourself to realize that you are just truly the observer, which is in the eyes. And I wrote something about this last year, this time, like the eyes, the eyes are the windows to the soul. That's truly who you are. It's hard to say with language because it's not who you are, but it is what it is, right? The observer. And when I look into your eyes, I keep saying I, not I, but I, the higher I, right? The big I. Once you start to realize these things, it's a really good anchor to have, because for me, that's truth. It's not my truth, it's just the truth from my experience, which is I don't actually think, that's my mind. I don't actually speak, that's my mind. I'm just watching, that's I. And it's really important to go through these processes. And if you've done 1,000 different plants, you will have had 1,000 different ways of expressing itself to the mind, because the mind is the child. And we do all this to train the mind to be cooperative throughout all these processes. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice and a lot of patience, because the mind is a child.
Well, what do you think about when people want to take shortcuts?
You can take shortcuts. It's fine. But
Is
remember,
it though?
But remember,
do you really
no,
get the full lesson if you take shortcuts?
I think that divinity knows exactly what it's doing, and it's already been prepared for the little fucker called the mind that is going to do everything and anything to avoid things. So you could take shortcuts, man, it's fine. But if there's something that needs to be addressed, the soul has an intention for something that needs to be addressed to the, by the mind, it'll always figure out a way of doing it. And for me personally, I don't need to go to Peru and, do ayahuasca and shit my pants and puke for 12 hours. I can just do the lab work. And the more better that I get the lab work, the more I actually get to address these things without having weird things happening or some weird chanting, people shit coming into my sphere. Like, no, no, no. I could just literally do the lab work. And it's interesting because I've had people argue with me. I don't argue back, but people argue with me that you don't have to do the lab work. And it's like, well, you don't have to, but if you're just going to talk about philosophy forever and ever and ever, you're not actually giving me anything concrete, because philosophies are almost like, they're like theories. And there's only one truth. Everything else can be factual. We all kind of agree on things, and we don't. But taking shortcuts, as within, so without, as without, so within. So if I'm taking shortcuts outside of myself with something that is part of me, then I'm taking shortcuts with myself. And that's fine. There's no right or wrong. For me personally, it's how long is this going to take me? Because I can peer over the edge real quick and see where all the infinite paths that I can take, but I can't go anywhere unless I take care of this shit right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm shortcutting, how far am I actually going to get? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's something that Jung calls the longissima via, which is the long winding path. And alchemy, or at least lab work, is the long winding path. And because it's an art, there's so many ways that you can skin a cat. But in my opinion, when you're first learning, it's important to do it the long way, because it teaches you patience and it teaches you certain things that you don't learn if you do take shortcuts, and then later on you have to go back and relearn because you never learned the foundations first. So it's almost like if you haste makes waste. So if you are hasty and you just go diving in gung ho, that's how people blow up their labs. Okay, so just be very careful, especially when you're starting in the mineral and metal work, because really what the vegetable and the animal realms are for is developing your skills.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's mostly because it's safe.
Yeah.
And it also develops your virtue as you're developing your practical skills. So that's really my perspective. I don't agree with taking shortcuts at all until you have actually mastered what you're doing, and then the shortcut reveals itself to you in your practice.
Yep. But for now, for me personally, it's like I got to just do the work now, and I got to grin and bear it. We usually take shortcuts because it's quicker, but there are just some, and you can do that stuff with being quicker with your personal, like, internal development.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking about speed that actually gets you somewhere, like, it's gonna, like, are you prepared for the amount of energy and data stream that's gonna flow through you? Are you prepared to handle all that? And I try not to, like, get into, like, the metallics and the minerals, just because there's just so much to learn from the plant realm, and the animal stuff is just so taboo. Like, no one's teaching it, no one's really talking about it, but essentially you're just looking at the plant realm, and everything that you learn from there will teach you techniques that you're going to bring into the mineral realm, and the mineral realm within itself is a technique that takes you into the metallics.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're actually performing what people so wrongly, they use this word art, and it's like, no, man, like, if it's an art, it, it requires discipline, and discipline is another word for technique. How you develop discipline or how you develop technique is through trial and error and repetition, over and over and over and over and over again, until it's no longer a discipline. It just becomes natural. And that's when you get to that point, that's when, like, these little shortcuts are like, oh, wait, I don't have to do this because this thing, oh shit. It's like, yeah. And I get people messaging me like, yo, is there, like, a faster way? There is faster ways, but I'm not going to tell you, because if you have to ask, is there faster ways, there probably, most likely, is something that you're missing in what you were doing before, and that's why you're sitting here asking that question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Someone asked me recently, why do I bother going through the calcining process? And why don't I just add potassium carbonate to my spagyrics?
It wasn't.
And that's a good question, because that would be kind of considered a shortcut, but not really, because almost all salts are like 98% potassium carbonate, and there's like 2% trace minerals in there. But you only get those trace minerals if you actually calcine your material. And you can't just add potassium carbonate for your salts, because then your spagyric is not complete. It's not whole. So, and also you don't gain the virtue and the wisdom that you do by actually going through the process of calcining. Now, like when you're beginning out, you first use your crude fire, and then you can level up. And what I like to say is, you make yourself more efficient, you don't take shortcuts. And the ways that occurs happens when you do the work.
And when you don't take shortcuts and you really just like grin and bear it and go through the shit, you are more apt to know what you're talking about, as opposed to someone that just starts to talk about these things and you can tell that they don't really know. It's like, I forgot who said this. You know what you're talking about when you could explain this to a fifth grader, or yeah, and they could actually comprehend what you're talking about. So if I think I know about quantum physics, then I should be able to. How I'll know that I actually know about quantum physics and I know how to talk about it is I'll speak to it to a child, and the child can actually comprehend what I'm saying. And the only way to get to that point is by truly, truly, truly going to the work. And all this stuff is just preparation for bigger things, bigger things. I've had to learn to shut up about those bigger things, but for me, they're like what get me riled up. It's like, ooh, I don't stay looking over at the infinite paths of possibilities, right? But it just seems so basic, right? Like when you were in school, it's like, why am I learning? I mean, school's for idiots, but a lot of the things that we were learning, it's like, man, why am I sitting here doing this thing? And it's like, when you finally comprehend it and get it, and you start to actually use it in the real world, it's like, oh, I see. But school is actually kind of a crappy example, but it's like the alchemist is the one that understands how nature functions, which means the alchemist understands how she or he functions, because it's the same. Mm-hmm. And now to get very playful with it, the alchemist will master the plant realm, master all the realms, get to the metallics, then get into what's called stonework, and understand that you can build things, you can make things happen, but you will never, ever, ever get there. Ever. I don't care how much black magic sorcery you try, you will never actually get there unless you learn the disciplines from before, because they humble you out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because one of the things that you, what's the word, consecrate inside of you, like the thing that you actually like cultivate is power.
But wisdom and virtue.
Power comes with great responsibility. And in order to attain the mental capacity to hold the space inside of you for that immense energy and to keep you humble, that's what Jesus said. And it's really important to actually go through these processes, because if not, that's how you get like, I mean, they're cool. I got some friends that are sorcerers, but you get like modern sorcery still all the way from the fall of Egypt, still happening in this day, where it's like, I know how it all functions. I don't want to do anything, so I'm just going to have everybody work for me. And that's how we get into these weird, like, spiritual conspiracy theory stuff. People that don't know how to harness that power in a humble, loving manner with integrity, mm-hmm. respect for themselves and love for themselves, and know, like, I can actually do anything. I can make anything happen. I can create a black and white kitten in my hand if I just speak it into reality, right? But all of this, from the plant realm down to the stonework, all that's doing is preparing you to actually step into godhood, creatorhood.
Or it's more like remembering an embodiment of that remembering. But Somebody's asking what basic equipment to start distillation, just to start. We can, when we post this, we can give you some resources and websites. My recommendation is just get simple hydro distillation setup. If you can learn how to use that setup very, very well, you can do most other things in the lab.
Yep. Empower thyself. Hell yeah. That's one of, I have like a whole list of things of do's, and then I was doing like a list of don'ts for materia artium as an expression of I. And then I got rid of the don't list, and it's just like provide the stage for people to empower themselves. Provide the resources for people to empower themselves. Speak in a manner in which people can start to realize and remember that they have the power, that it's not me, that I'm not playing shaman, that I'm not playing magician, that I'm not playing healer, that all I'm doing is just being your homie and reminding you that you can do this shit. It's all you. I'm not doing miracles. I'm not performing magic. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm literally just here because you created me. That's the only reason why I exist in your story. And if you created me, it's just because I came here to just remind you of something that we all forget lifetime after lifetime.
That's really why I am passionate and I enjoy working with the different forms of consciousness, because for a moment, so the idea is that you do the work outside yourself so that you don't have to, your body does not have to do the work inside yourself by digesting it and putting it all through these processes. So if you do the work outside yourself, you separate, purify, and recombine the principles, then when you ingest it, it can do the work on you. So for a moment, it's like you get to wear a different set of glasses and you get to try that on and experience a different perspective of consciousness. And then that widens your total perspective. And that's how you begin to remember and you start unlocking these virtues and wisdoms and codes. And then you're pulling levers on reality. And all of a sudden you remember that abundance is your birthright and that this just flows through you, that because you are here in your essence and you're a piece of consciousness itself, that this is what you were meant to be always. So Raven and I are simply reflections, and we just have spent a lot of time working on ourselves and also a lot of time in the laboratory figuring this stuff out.
And it's not easy until I stop thinking about it being easy or not. And then I just realized like this is super easy. And then the next thing comes like, ooh, okay. I spoke it. So here's the next one. Awesome. But I'm fucking ready. Just surrender to it. That's it. Put in the work, develop the discipline, set alarms, write down your schedule, like set time for this special thing. And it's not easy because look, in ancient times, the alchemists had to make everything themselves. And in the Middle East, in the desert, they didn't have glassware. They were using sand and dirt and clay to make these things. They were peeing on haystacks for a year or more just to make nitric acid. We don't have to do any of that shit anymore. It doesn't make it easier though. What it means is like now in this new era,
can go further.
Yeah, faster. If there was ever a more mercurial era, this is it. The data streams are so important. They're so intense. I mean,
on
this the age
Wednesday
of information. It is Wednesday.
So with 5 minutes left, I'm going to talk about me for a second.
Yeah.
So, so far, I've been mostly supporting Raven in his entity we call Materia. But what I haven't been able to do is really talk about my entity, which his name is Taboo. for obvious reasons. So sex is one of the most taboo topics, and my personal path and walk through alchemy has been through sex in my embodiment and understanding of sexual alchemy. So on June 20th, I will be releasing and launching my website and my first 3 keystone filters, which are love potions. And if you don't already follow me, my Instagram is at dripping_lotus, like a dripping wet yoni. And on my Instagram page, I have a link on there to my website. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I will be offering you the first vision of my website and also the first dibs at what I'm offering. I'm only making very limited runs of things because it is art, and I like to um, specialize it like you would a set of art prints. So on June 20th, which is the summer solstice, you will be seeing my entity, Taboo, be birthed into this reality. Yeah, sex magic and also sacred sex. And what I intend to do is offer different perspectives about these topics that aren't out there and stuff that I have spent a lot of time and energy working through to exalt myself and exalt this energy in myself and learn how to hold it with responsibility and discipline. So thank you all for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
We still got 3 minutes. I do want to say I've been getting a lot of messages about magic. And I always say magic with a K, with a capital K. Still a C in there. And what that is and what it's not. So I was just thinking just now, hey, maybe we can do or I could by myself or with you, whatever, on Saturn's Day. Do a live video feed on magic, what it is, what it's not, what's the purpose, and have you always been doing it without even realizing? All this and more Saturday. Let's do Saturday 6 p.m.
I don't know. We'll see how my schedule flows. We'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
I'm not letting this guy dictate my schedule.
I'm dictating my own.
Thank you, everybody.